your Algebra Chapter 5 practice test. I'm going to work it out with you. Number 1, 2, 3, and 4, numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4, say find the slope of the line that passes through these points. And then be sure to simplify if possible. So first of all, if you're not sure what the formula for finding slope from 2 points is, it is, I'm going to see if I can find room. I can't find room anywhere. I'll just write it right here. It is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So, and remember, this is my x1, this is my y1 because it's the first set of coordinates, and then this would be my x2, y2. And then all you're going to do is take these numbers and plug them in for these letters, these variables. So y2 minus y1 would be 22 minus 12 over x2 minus x1, which is 6 minus 1. All right, 22 minus 12 is 10. 6 minus 1 is 5. It says simplify if you can. 10 divided by 5 is 2. All right, let's keep going. Now that you know which one is my x1, y1, and x2, y2, I'm just going to do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. If it's a negative, be sure to write it in addition to the minus. So this one's a little tricky. 5 minus 2 is 3. 0 minus negative 18, that would become a positive 18. So if you're not sure, use your calculator and just put it in exactly like it says, 0 minus negative 18. 3/18 definitely simplifies. They both divide evenly by 3, so that would be 1/6. Number 3 is y2 minus y1 again, 2 minus negative 2. There's just several of these to practice. Negative 3 minus negative 3. Again, be sure you're getting all the minuses and negatives written down. That would be 4. If you don't believe me, please put it in your calculator. 2 minus negative 2. 2 minus negative 2. Negative 3 minus negative 3. There's no reason not to use your calculator. 0. All right, let's see what happens. 4 divided by 0 can simplify. Let's try it. 4 divided by 0. Okay, that is the divided by 0 error. So let's think about what that must mean for the slope. If you can't divide by 0, that must mean that this has made a vertical line. If you were to think through where these coordinates would be, they would be on this vertical line, which means it is undefined, which is why there is an error. You can't divide by 0. So this slope has to be simplified. It can't just be 4 divided by 0. It is simplified to actually be undefined. That's the actual answer, undefined. All right, 1 minus 2 is y2 minus y1, and then x2 minus x1 is 3 minus 2. 1 minus 2 is negative 1. 3 minus 2 is positive 1. Negative 1 divided by positive 1 is negative 1. Just to review on this, if this had been 0 over 4, so it had flipped and it would have been a horizontal line, that one would have been 0. You can do 0 divided by 4. 0 divided by 4. You just can't do 4 divided by 0. So if the 0 was the top number, the whole final answer would be 0. Okay, just want to go back to that for a second. All right, numbers 5, 6, 7, and 8 is talking about direct variation. So remember, the formula for direct variation is y equals kx. And all you have to do is borrow the x, sorry, it's right up here somewhere. The x, we're going to actually do that later. Borrow this x and this y to plug in for this x and this y to find what k is. And then we'll go back and talk about it wants us to find something else too. So we're not just finding the direct variation equation, then we're also finding when y, or we're finding y when x equals 9. So here we go. So y equals kx, but we're going to borrow 8 for y, keep k. We're going to borrow negative 4 for x, and we're just going to solve it. So obviously you would divide by negative 4 on both sides. And so k equals negative 2. So now that we know k equals negative 2, the equation is y equals negative 2x. Okay, that's the first part. That's at first what I thought was all we needed to do today. But now it says also find the value of y when x equals 9. So now, if x equals 9, what would it be? And I know you can probably do this in your head. All you're doing is negative 2 times 9, which is negative 18. So in these particular problems on your test, you're going to have two things, the equation and the answer when x equals whatever it tells you it equals. All right, let's try the one below it. So again, we start off with y equals kx. We're going to borrow 3 for y and 9 for x. We're going to solve by dividing both sides by 9. And in this case, k is a fraction. 3/9 simplifies to 1/3. So our equation is that should have been a y. Y equals 1/3 x, because 1/3 is k. But then it wants us to plug in 9 for x, and then solve that too. So 9 times 1/3. Oh, that's not right, sorry. 9 times 1, ABC 3. 3. Y would equal 3. All right, so again, 2 answers in each section. Let's keep going. So y equals kx. We want to plug in 15 for y and 6 for x. Divide both sides by 6. Ooh, okay, another fraction. These both would divide evenly by, actually, let's just divide it out and see what we get. 15 divided by 6, 2.5. Let's just leave it 2.5. So we'll just say it's 2.5. So y equals 2.5x is the equation, and then it still wants us to do the thing where we substitute in 9. 2.5 times 9 is 22.5. 22.5. Okay, so our two answers are y equals 2.5x and 22.5. And then the last one, y equals kx, y is negative 4, x is positive 4, divide both sides by 4. K would be negative 1, so that means our equation is y equals negative 1x. You can put negative 1 if you want, or you can leave your 1 just hidden, invisible. And then when x is 9, it would just be negative 9. Okay, last section, and the reason that's because it's negative and then x is 9, when x is 9. Okay, the next section is write an entire equation for these lines that have already been graphed. So to write an equation, we're going to use slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, where m is our slope and b is our y-intercept. So let's count the slope, which is rise over run, and then let's find the y-intercept, which is going to be our b. So our y-intercept is where it hits this y-axis, and I see that it hits right there, which is at positive 1. So our b is 1. Our slope is up 1 over, up 2 over 3, it looks like, up 2 over 3. So if our slope is up 2 over 3, then it's 2 over 3. And so put it all together, y equals 2/3 x plus 1. All right, let's try the next one. The y-intercept hits right here on the y-axis at negative 1. So the b is negative 1. And then the slope is up 1 over 2. Up 1 over 2, yeah. So the slope is 1/2 because it's up 1 over 2. It's rise over run. So y equals half x minus 1. All right, let's keep going to the next one. Y-intercept hits right here at negative 1 again. So my b is negative 1 again. This one, I hope you guys noticed, is going downhill. It's going down 1 over 1. Down 1 over 1. So my slope is negative 1 over 1, which is just 1. So when you put it all together, it's y equals negative 1 x, which I'm just going to call it negative x, and then the b is minus 1. All right, and then the last one of these, the y-intercept actually hits right at the origin, so the b is 0. And then the slope is negative again, it's going downhill, so it's going down to 3 over 2. Looks like it's down 3 over 2. So the slope is negative because it's going downhill, 3 over 2. So put it all together in your equation, y equals negative 3/2 x. Since it's plus 0, you can just leave it off. All right, let's go to the next page. The next page is exactly opposite. Now it gives you the equation and you are going to graph the line. So I would always start by putting your y-intercept, your b, on its spot first. So go to the y-axis and put a dot at negative 3. So that's right here. And then from that dot, you're going to count slope, which is 4. So anytime it's a whole number, you need to change it into a fraction so that you can see how many your rise is over how many your run is. So if it's a whole number, it's that number over 1. So we're going to rise 4 and run 1. So from this dot, you're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1. And then keep going 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1. The more dots you have, the straighter your line is going to be. And you do need to draw a line with arrows at both ends through the dots. Okay, number 14 is a y equals 2. I kind of asked you guys to memorize which way, if there was no x, which way lines were that would be horizontal, or which way lines would be that would be vertical. If it's a y equals, it is a horizontal line. If it's an x equals, it's a vertical line. But in case you forget, let's say you get to your test and you're like, oh, I can't remember which is which. I know it's only a y equals something. So it's either going to be vertical on the 2 or horizontal on the 2 because it's a y equals 2. So let's say you're just not sure which one to do. Go ahead and make yourself a mini table over here of x and y values. And it's saying that it wants all of the y's to be equal to 2. So instead of y, I want you to put, or well, under the y column, I want you to put all 2's, or at least a few. And then for x's, though, you can pick whatever you want. So let's say we just do 0, 1, 2. And then you're going to plot these points. So 0, 2 would be right here. 1, 2 would be right here. 2, 2 would be right here. So then you're going to get the picture and you're going to think, oh yes, a y equals is a horizontal line on the number 2 because that's what it's equal to. All right, number 15, I noticed that this is in point slope form. It's not in slope intercept form, so you have a couple of options here. You can either distribute and then move the plus 3 to minus 3 and get it in slope intercept form, so you can graph it from the slope and from the y-intercept. Or if you're pretty good at point slope form, this is easier, that you already know that this is given as the m already, so we already know the slope. And a point is, this is your x coordinate and this is your y coordinate. But remember, the formula is to subtract it. So if it's subtracting positive 1, then my x coordinate is positive 1. And if it's adding, that means there was a subtraction and a negative right next to each other, because a negative is what made this a plus. So this is actually a negative 3. So now that you know your slope is 2, or let's go ahead and make it a fraction, 2 over 1, and your point is at 1, -3, you can just graph it straight from that. So let's graph our point at 1, -3, 1, -3, and if we know our slope is up 2 over 1, we can just go up 2 over 1 from there. And if you really don't know how point slope works, you can actually just go ahead, like I said, and distribute and then subtract your 3, and you'll get this same line. But if you know point slope form, it's actually pretty handy just to be able to use it straight like that. Okay, number 16, you have a few different things to do here too. So you can either rearrange it and get y by itself. So you would minus 2x to both sides, divide by -3, all of that. Or if you remember standard form, that's ax plus by equals c, that means this will give us the x and y intercepts. If you remember intercepts. So intercepts are when it's on the x-axis, you have a coordinate that is a number and 0, so a number comma 0. And when it's on the y-axis, you have 0 and then comma a number, 0 comma a number. So if you know your intercepts, you can just have an x-intercept and a y-intercept, and then you've got your line. So since it's in standard form, it's much easier to just look at your intercepts. So let's try when y is 0. So when y is 0, let's see if we can find our x. So if y was 0, let's think this through. 0 times anything is just 0. So this whole term would be gone. This whole term is 0. So I just cover it up with my finger here. And I look at what we have left. It's hard to see over here, but what we have left is 2x equals 6. Let's do that in our head. 2 times what equals 6? That would be 3. So x is 3. So x is 3 when y is 0. So 3 comma 0. We can go ahead and plot that. And then now let's figure it out when x is 0. So let's say instead of x here you have 0. 0 times 2 is 0. 0 times anything is 0. So it's like making this whole thing 0 or gone. And I'm going to just cover it up. It's gone. Let's say it's gone. So let's look at what we have left. We have negative 3 times what number equals 6? Negative 3 times negative 2 is 6. So y would be negative 2. And then you can go plot that. 0, negative 2. 0, negative 2. So now we have a y-intercept and we have an x-intercept, which means we can draw a line. Oh, that's not very straight. That's okay. Through those 2 points. Now again, if you'd rather, you can totally rearrange this equation and get it in slope-intercept form, and you're going to get the same line I got. I just noticed if it's already in standard form, to me it's easier just to go ahead and cover this up and find your intercepts real quick first. It's just another way to know how to graph. All right, let's move on to slope-intercept form. Okay, cool. Well, we know that slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So we need to find both the m and the b. We have neither. We just have a couple of points. So let's start by finding the m. If you forgot how to find the slope from 2 points, once again, it is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And that's just to find the m. So we're going to work this all out, and it'll give us half of our equation. So here we go. y2 minus y1 is 4 minus 4 over 1 minus negative 3. 1 minus negative 3. All right, 4 minus 4 is 0. 1 minus negative 3 is 4. This is interesting. We've got that exact same scenario except this that we had earlier in this test. Although this time it is 0 divided by 4, which is 0. All right, so we have our m. So m is 0. So far we've got half of our information. We've got y equals 0x plus b. Okay, we've got our slope. Now we have to find our b, our y-intercept. So in order to do that, we have to borrow one of these coordinates, and it doesn't matter which one. I tend to pick ones that look easier, and to me positives look easier. So I'm going to choose this one to borrow just for a second to make y4 and to make x1 just for a minute so that we can calculate to find what our b is. Okay, 0 times anything is 0. So therefore you could subtract 0 from both sides. Okay, I'm doing a lot more work. I'm sure you guys could do all of this in your head and you would have already known that b equals 4. So we're going to put it all together. Y equals 0x plus 4. And I want you to know that anytime you have 0x, 0 times anything is 0, so it's just gone. So a better answer for this would just be y equals 4. But if you left it in slope-intercept form, this is technically true as well. This is just better. This is a more simplified final answer. All right, let's try another one of those. So again, first thing we're going to do is calculate slope, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, and if you forgot, this is my x1, y1. This is my x2, y2. So 1 minus negative 2 over 6 minus 3. 1 minus negative 2 is 3. Use your calculator if you're not sure. And 6 minus 3 is 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. So we've got half of our equation done. We know that it's y equals 1x plus b. We don't know our b yet. So we're going to borrow a set of coordinates, either 3, negative 2 or 6, 1. I'm going to choose 6, 1. Looks a little easier to me. And we're just going to plug in 1 for my y and 6 for my x, just for now, just so that we can use it for a quick sec so that we can help us find our b. All right, that's 6 plus b. My 6's and b's look alike. Oh no, this is minus 6 on both sides. b equals 1 minus 6, which is negative 5. So now we know both our m, which was 1, and our b, which is negative 5. So put it all together in slope-intercept form, and we have y equals 1x minus 5. And again, I didn't put the 1 there because it can be hidden and invisible to see, and so this is better, more simplified, but it's the same thing. All right, intercepts. We just went over this on number 16. But if you forgot, finding intercepts is an easy way, is just covering up the x to find the y, covering up the y to find the x. And again, the reason that works is because when you're finding intercepts, you're making x 0 in one case, and then you're making y 0 in the other case. So let's start with x being 0. So in this problem, if x is 0, 0 times anything is 0, so that part is gone. It leaves negative 5 times what number would equal negative 20? Negative 5 times 4 equals negative 20. So it would be 4. Okay, now let's make y 0. So instead of this y right up here, I want you to see it as 0. It's being multiplied. So 0 times anything is just 0. That whole thing is gone. I'm going to cover up the whole thing. And what we have left is hard to see around my finger, but it's 4x equals negative 20. So 4 times what number equals negative 20? It is negative 5. So here are my two intercepts. So again, you just cover up one. So my x-intercept here, in fact, I'll even write it out like this. My x-intercept would be negative 5, and my y-intercept is 4. And I don't care if you write it like this, one is negative 5 and one's 4, or if you write it, just leave it in your little table. That's fine too. All right, let's do one more. I'm not going to explain it all. I'm just going to cover up and see. So in this one, if I cover up my x and make it 0, the y-intercept would be whatever negative 2 times what is to be equal to positive 2. That would be negative 1, right? Negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2. Yeah. Okay, and then the x-intercept, sorry, I'm not writing it all out, would be when y is 0. So I'm going to cover up y times negative 2. That whole thing's gone. X just equals 2, and that's your answer. X isn't multiplied or divided by anything, so it's just x equals 2. So the x-intercept equals 2. You can write it like this, or like I said, you can leave it in your little table, however makes more sense to you. I'll take it either way. All right, moving on to the next section. Write an equation for a line that passes through these points and is parallel to this equation. Okay, the important thing for you to remember about parallel is parallel has the same slope. So we need to look at our equation and find out what that slope is. And in this first one, the slope is 5. So since it's parallel, it needs to stay 5. So I'm going to write y equals 5x plus b. The y-intercept in this previous one doesn't matter. We're going to find our new one. So how we find our new one is you write what the slope is, and we know they're the same because they are parallel. We're going to borrow this x and y coordinate just for a minute, just so we can calculate our new b. So this is my x and this is my y. So negative 1 is y, and then 2 is x. So we're going to use those points just to be able to calculate our new b, our new y-intercept. So you would minus 10 from both sides, b equals negative 11. So put it all back together. We know 5 is our slope. We know now that negative 11 is our b. So we've got y equals 5x minus 11. All right, next one. Y equals 9x. So, and it doesn't even have a b in this case, but it doesn't matter because we're going to find our new b. All we care about is that we use the 9 for the slope because they're parallel. So y equals 9x plus b. We're going to borrow this x and this y coordinate. So y is now negative 5. X is now 0. Just to find our new b. 0 times anything is 0. I know I'm walking you through all this, and once you know it's 0, you already know what b is, but you could minus 0 from both sides. B would be equal to negative 5. So put it all together. We have our 9 slope and our negative 5 y-intercept. Y equals 9x minus 5. All right, let's look at the last page. The last page here, okay? This next part is exactly like what we just did, except this time it is perpendicular. So let's think through what that means. Perpendicular equations have the opposite reciprocal slope. So not just the opposite and not just the reciprocal, but both the opposite and reciprocal slope. So let's think through what the opposite reciprocal is of negative 3. I hope you said in your head positive 1/3. So I'm going to write y equals positive 1/3 x plus b. And then we're going to borrow this x and this y to plug it in to calculate b. So y is going to be 5. 1/3 is our slope. We're going to borrow 3 for x. 1/3 times 3 I think is 1. 1/3 times 3. I'm modeling using my calculator. Anytime you're not sure, use your calculator. And it is 1. Bring down plus b. Then we're going to minus 1 from both sides. Subtract 1 from both sides. Okay, and that'd be 4. So our new perpendicular slope equation is y equals positive 1/3 x plus 4. That's a positive 4 slope. All right, last one of these. Look at your slope, which currently is 8, and think about what the opposite reciprocal would be for that. So the opposite reciprocal of 8 would be negative 1/8, because you flip it. So we're looking at y equals negative 1/8 x plus b, because again, I don't care what their y-intercept is, we need to find a new one. Then we're going to borrow this x and this y to plug them in to calculate b. So 10 is now my new y. Leave negative 1/8 the slope times 16 we're going to borrow for the x. Negative 1/8 times 16, negative 1, ABC 8 times 16 is negative 2 plus b. So then we're going to add 2 to both sides. B equals 12. All right, so our new entire equation that's perpendicular is y equals negative 1/8 x plus 12. All right, now that we know about parallel and perpendicular, it says decide whether these are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So you've got y equals 6x and then whatever, and a problem. We know that the slope is 6 in the first one, but we don't know what the slope is in the second equation because it's not in slope-intercept form like the first one is. So we get to rearrange it. We need to get y by itself. So in order to do that, let's move the 18x by subtracting it. Bring down your negative 3y, negative 18x plus, that's a positive 15. And then last step, divide both sides by negative 3. When you divide this by negative 3, both terms have to get divided by negative 3. All right, so you're left with y equals, that would be 6x minus 5. Okay, so our original slope was 6, and now our other slope is also 6. So same slope makes these two lines parallel. You don't have to write it that big. I don't know why I did that. Okay, what about these two? Oh, neither one of these are in slope-intercept form. This is going to be fun. This one almost has y by itself, so I'm going to do the second one first. To get y by itself, all we have to do is minus 3, and then we're done. So this one is y equals 5/2 x minus 3. So the slope of this one on the right is 5/2. Okay, let's figure out the slope of this other one, which is going to take a tiny bit more time to do, but not a lot. We can do it. To get y by itself, first I want to get rid of this positive 2x. So we're going to subtract 2x to the other side. Negative 5y equals negative 2x plus 0. You really don't even need the plus 0. I'm just going to leave it off. And then last step to get y by itself is divide by negative 5 on both sides. A negative divided by a negative makes this one positive, a fraction that's positive, but 2 doesn't divide nice and neat by 5, so I'm just going to leave it 2/5, and it's now positive because a negative divided by a negative. So 2/5 x. So this slope is positive 2/5, and this slope is positive 5/2. So I can see how someone might think it's perpendicular because we did use the reciprocal. However, it's not the opposite and reciprocal. They're both positive. So this is actually neither. I, again, don't know why I wrote so huge. That's okay. All right, these next two are talking about correlation and scatter plots. So this one, I'm going to say that overall, in general, this looks like it has negative correlation. I know if it was just this section, it'd be a little bit harder to tell, but I think because it starts off so dominantly going down, I'm going to call this one a negative correlation. 28, though, this is definitely completely scattered. So I would say this one has, you can either write the word none or no correlation, either way. All right, and then the last one is multiple choice. Which scatter plot trend line would be represented by the equation y equals 1/2 x plus 2? Okay, this is a little tricky. First of all, I want you to notice that the slope is positive. It's up 1/2. It's positive. So I want to be looking for a scatter plot that in general goes up from left to right because it is a positive 1/2 slope. So it's not going to be this one because this is going downhill. And it's really not going to be this one. And it's really not going to be this one. So let's make sure that we are right. This slope could be going up 1/2, up 1/2, up 1/2. Yeah, I would say that in general this slope is going up 1/2. Let's also use what we know just to make sure. The y-intercept is hitting at about 2. The b is 2. So let's go to the y-axis, go to 2, and look like, does it look like a dot could be there for our y-intercept? Yes, it does. And then up 1/2, up 1/2, up 1/2. So it's definitely this one. I just want you to see why it's that one. All right.